Just because you've retired doesn't mean you've lost your love of learning. That's why Plato exists, to help turn retirement into your most enriching chapter yet. Right now, join Plato Madison and participate in new classes starting next week, February 17th. Join to learn about current events, explore the Hollywood musical, or workshop your writing or art with other intellectually curious adults. All of these classes and more are included in your Plato membership, now just $30. Become a member today at platomadison.org. That's Plato Madison.org. Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week, I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Haley Sperling and Wisconsin State Journal's Lucas Robinson. We're talking about an investigation into reports that the Dane County Airport director went MIA on her job duties. The former finance director of the Goodman Community Center is facing felony charges for theft of over $500,000. Hundreds protest downtown in a backlash against President Donald Trump. And it's that time again. Name our city's snowplows. It's Friday, February 7th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. Joining me today is a special guest, Lucas Robinson, reporter with the Wisconsin State Journal, to give us an update on the news around our Dane County Airport director. And in a minute, we'll be bringing in the leader of this podcast, Haley Sperling, to go over more news stories. Hey, Lucas, thanks so much for coming on the podcast again. We're stoked to have you back.
Hello, Bianca. I'm really happy to be back. It was a good time last time talking about the ice rinks. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, and likewise. And now there's another kind of wild story about getting into the weeds of how people are showing up at work and business. You recently published a story detailing an investigation into the Dane County Regional Airport's director. Can you give us the 10,000-foot overview of the complaints that led to this investigation?
Yeah, so for starters, the airport is owned and operated by the county. So the people that work there, including the person that the story is about, is a county employee. The director of the airport is named Kim Jones. She's been the director for about 6-7 years and a county employee for about 20 years. And so the thrust of the story stems from 3 other top airport officials going to county leadership in early 2023 with just a host of complaints about Jones's leadership. The most serious of them was her just general unresponsiveness to the staff of the airport. They really struggled to just get her to respond to them with just day-to-day issues, to make decisions about the airport. It seems like she was working from home a lot during this time period, and the investigation talks about how when she is working from home, it's just radio silence, that they could not get a hold of her. And from there, the other complaints included favoritism, protecting employees that were very problematic, who happened to be employees she had personal relationships with. Yeah, so it's just yet another county workplace issue.
Also, during a time when airports are already facing challenges with the pandemic, having a sort of additional layer of challenges from leadership sounds like it would be pretty tough.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting about the Dane County's airport is that it has these kind of traditional operations that you would expect from an airport, planes coming and going, but they're also wrapped up in these kind of political and environmental and military issues, obviously with the F-35 noise and all of the work they have to do surrounding the noise and its impact on surrounding communities, as well as the PFAS issue. They're the lead for just the bureaucracy and then kind of never going to happen remediation around that. So as the airport director, she has a lot of hats and issues she's involved with beyond just the traditional operations of an airport.
Yeah, I remember us talking with Dane County Supervisor Yoga Shaula about that issue, and we were trying to get the airport to come on. We did eventually get a comment, but it actually did take a pretty long time. So how has Kim Jones responded to the allegations that are surfacing?
So the documents I had a lot of her correspondence with the investigators in real time as the investigation was happening. And for the most part, in her responses, she pretty much across the board denied all of the complaints that were made about her and was overall very defensive about her leadership of the airport. On the unresponsiveness and lack of work issue, she claimed that her staff, as well as the investigators, just did not know how much she was working, and just overall defended and just denied all of it. And I got to say, I've seen a lot of these internal human resources investigations, and so often they point out a lot of facts and circumstances that are damning, but they really usually fall short of corroborating and confirming complaints against people. And I have never seen one of these investigations that is so overwhelming in its confidence and confirmation of the different complaints being alleged at someone.
Yeah, there was one allegation that stood out to me just for its pure absurdity, I guess. An employee who was said to be friends with Jones gave her quail eggs, coffee, and preserves. Also then threatened to bring a gun to work and then was not disciplined for their actions. Just, it seemed absurd.
That's one of those details when you see it, you just have to quietly just be so happy that you found something like this in documents. Even though it is kind of funny, it is very serious. I mean, this was an employee that, was gifting the airport director. There's some back and forth in documents of whether she's gifting or selling them, but regardless, she was bringing Jones, nice workplace gifts. But at the same time, this was an employee who threatened to bring a gun to work, the implication being that she was going to use it on the people she worked with. And when the discipline of this person got to Jones, there was no action taken. And there was another employee was a family friend of Jones who had very bizarre behavior, referring to passengers at the airport by racial slurs, showing dirty needles to passengers at the airport, and just generally having bizarre, inappropriate behavior. And again, someone with a relationship with her, the discipline went to her for a decision to be made, and nothing happened.
One part of the investigation showed that representatives of Southwest Airlines who were interested in starting service at the airport were neglected. We basically lost an opportunity, it sounds like, around Southwest Airlines. There are a lot of people who are diehard Southwest Airlines lovers and are totally committed to that airline and have to drive to Milwaukee to get it. So the idea that that was something like an opportunity lost is kind of wild.
Yeah, the Southwest issue was included in the longer memo from other airport officials about what they had seen Jones doing, and that included being reached out to by Southwest to kind of initiate the negotiations of starting service there, and apparently they just never got a response. Now, Jones, she didn't deny it when she responded to me. She just said she had no recollection of that happening, and did include that in March, airport staff are going to Southwest headquarters to finally initiate those discussions. So who knows, maybe Madison will get Southwest soon. There was a lot of talk in the investigation of deadlines not being met, decisions not being made, and it just didn't go too in depth to what the consequences of that were.
So has the investigation yielded any results?
Yeah, so like I said, most of the complaints were confirmed by investigators, and their immediate response was to make a host of written recommendations to Jones for how she could improve her leadership of the airport. They were all very practical about what you would expect, like respond to your staff, improve their perception that you don't do your job and don't respond to them, so on and so forth. And I could not get, and it makes sense, I could not get Jones or county administration to talk about how these recommendations were implemented, whether they were implemented at all, how her leadership has improved. And that does make a bit of sense just in terms of the privacy surrounding employee relations like this. But Jones is actually leaving the airport soon. Late last year, after Melissa Agar became the county executive, it was announced that Jones will be retiring this April. So regardless of this investigation, she will be out in the very near term, and the county is undertaking a nationwide recruitment effort to find a new director for the airport. So it'll be interesting to see how what this investigation found kind of influences the conversations surrounding who is ultimately picked to be the new airport director in their confirmation proceedings.
Sure. Well, we'll be paying attention to that. And obviously, as you said, there will be a new director at some point soon. And it's a big job. It was like, what, $228,000?
Must be nice. Yeah.
Must be nice.
No, it's one of the highest
ticket
paid positions in the county.
Yeah. Big ticket position. So there's that. And maybe we'll get Southwest Airlines. Lucas, we appreciate you giving us the story on this and appreciate your reporting. It's very good. Thank you so much.
Of course. Appreciate it, Bianca. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah. That's Lucas Robinson, reporter with the Wisconsin State Journal. If you want to check out his story, head to our show notes for a link. We've got more Friday News Roundup to go. But before that, let's take a quick break. Let's be honest, just because you've retired doesn't mean you've stopped wondering, exploring, and learning. That's why Plato is here. It's here to help you turn retirement into your most curious and enriching chapter yet. Plato Madison connects intellectually curious adults through special interest classes, fascinating lectures, social activities, and cultural outings around Wisconsin. Right now, you can join Plato and participate in these upcoming classes. Try chair yoga, explore the musical evolution of the Beatles, or dive into the nuances of global affairs. All of these classes and more are included in a Plato membership. Plus, it's more affordable than ever to invest in your love of learning. Half your memberships are only $30. Become a member today at platomadison.org. That's Plato Madison.org. Don't wait. New classes start next week on February 17th.
This is an ad from BetterHelp Online Therapy. We always hear about the red flags to avoid in relationships, but it's just as important to focus on the green flags. If you're not quite sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify those qualities so you can embody the green flag energy and find it in others. BetterHelp offers therapy 100% online, and sign-up only takes a few minutes. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
And now, welcome our leader of this here podcast, Haley Sperling. Happy Friday News Roundup.
Hello. Happy Friday News Roundup, Bianca. Let's go.
Let's go. And hey, we're going to stay on the beat of corruption, or rather mismanagement. There's a pretty big story out there about our beloved Madison nonprofit, the Goodman Community Center over on the east side. Their now former finance director, Dwayne Powell, is accused of embezzling over $600,000 from the nonprofit between April 2021 and June of last year. He's now facing 9 felonies for theft and 2 felonies for forgery. He was fired upon the director of the Goodman Center finding suspicious financial activity and then reporting it to the police. So he's no longer there. You might have heard us talking about this news story last summer, that something was afoot at Goodman, but we didn't know what. Now we know more. There's a criminal complaint out there. So in that criminal complaint, it alleges Powell embezzled $640,000 from the nonprofit for all kinds of unauthorized spending, including nearly weekly trips to Ho Chunk Casino to gamble, hotels, restaurants, paying for his own rent and phone bills, and sending Venmo payments to his brothers and girlfriend. So allegedly, he used a number of methods for getting the money: multiple company credit cards, making checks out to himself, getting money to fill the ATM, but then not all the money being put into the ATM. So Powell has been, as for some context, at the company since 2010, and he moved his way up, starting from accountant assistant to director, is what he told police. The Goodman Center has completely complied with the Madison Police Department's investigation, and in their public statement, they basically just underscored like how big of a breach of trust this has been to them. And they also did highlight that the investigation reportedly found that there were no grant monies or restricted donor funds used for Powell's alleged purchases. So he's due in court on February 27th in the Dane County Circuit Court for his initial appearance. So, man, that's a huge loss for this community center that serves thousands of people. And I would say a reputational blow for Goodman, the now 70-year plus running community center.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. You just hope that like they're putting in the work to make this right. But you said breach of trust, and I just think like that's the only way to put it. Like this is truly a nonprofit's worst nightmare, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I know that the center has said that they've put in protocols already to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again and new checks and balances. But it is hard not to question like how their routine yearly audits didn't catch any of this.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because especially like as a nonprofit and like I used to work in nonprofits, you have to be so careful. You have to know where your money is going. You're going to get audited, like it's not a surprise. You have to be just so diligent. And it makes me kind of wonder like what kind of, if there was any sort of like scheme he was putting on, to make the numbers look right. Was anyone else complicit in this? I don't want to imply that at all, but also there are a lot of questions here and hopefully more will come out as an investigation goes forward. But man, it's such a bummer too, because Goodman is just such a known entity in Madison and they just do so much good work. You know me, I'm East Side girly. I go by the Goodman Center all the time. And so it's a bummer. I remember when this story first came out and we were all like, what happened? And now we know what happened. And it's like, ooh, yikes. And this on top of, our airport director getting quail eggs. Like, it's just messy.
Messy. Y'all, stop the mess. Stop the mess.
Stop the mess.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, same. Like, I go by the Goodman Center probably twice a week at least. And, they do incredible youth programming, like fitness events. It's an event space for weddings. Like, I just went by and saw someone's wedding and like, sorry, I'm like waiting for you guys to take your photo across the street, Like, and I think, so many people, we still support and value Goodman Center so much. But to a couple of the points that you just made, so far the investigation isn't pointing at anyone else being like a collaborator in this embezzlement. So nothing like that has come out. And yes, like in terms of like, well, how was this hidden? Like, what were their sort of schemes? Allegedly there were a number. There are a ton more details on the story, and we're not going to dive into everything because it's a big investigation. But there are more details about when the director, Letitia Nelson, filed a report with the police in June last year. Like, she was alerted to the impropriety first from Lake Ridge Bank and like, hey, there are some suspicious checks. And then she looked into it. And some of the checks were to a bank that closed a year ago, sort of thing. And I saw some reporting showing that it was alleged that Powell didn't allow access to certain bank accounts and gave reasons why, it's going to be too complicated to onboard you in this process sort of thing. And we're going to be leaving that bank. So, it doesn't make sense for you to get access to it. So I imagine that there was a lot going on for this to happen. And yeah, I assume we'll probably find out more information. I didn't see the Goodman Center giving a bunch of interviews. I didn't really see that anywhere. But if they would like to come on, we would obviously talk to them. But I know this has got to be a huge loss and blow for them.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I can see people being quiet while there's like an active investigation going on. So I guess we'll kind of all be waiting in the wings to see how it all unfolds.
We are on here, the Friday News Roundup. We had two big stories about workplace woes, and we are going to keep on tracking on. But before we get into more news, let's take a quick break.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All right, we're back, and there is a lot of activity downtown this week.
Oh, yeah. There were Hundreds of people gathered downtown earlier this week in protest. And while that's kind of just a typical Wednesday for Madison, the protest was actually part of a nationwide day of action. All across the country in capital cities, people gathered to protest President Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Project 2025, and seemingly just like the general state of things. The movement was largely organized online using the hashtags Build the Resistance and 5051, which stands for 50 protest, 50 states, one day. Had you heard of this movement at all, Bianca?
I have, yes. I had seen the calls and I saw the outcomes.
Yeah. And initially, based off of what I had seen online, like mostly on Reddit, where people love to talk, so take it with a grain of salt, it really wasn't clear if people were going to show up for this protest in Madison. People were really lamenting the sort of lack of organization and a clear objective. People are like, I don't want to go out just to scream, into the void. But people did show up. And I think, one of the most interesting aspects of this protest, and this is like nationwide, is that it drew just such a range of people, all across the country. Staunch liberals, former Republicans, current conservatives came out to make their voices heard because there are just so many issues to protest these days. In Madison, I think like one of the biggest commonalities that I've seen from local reporting on the event is that people are, one, they're pissed off, right? They're pissed off in general, but they're specifically mad about Trump's rollback of DEI initiatives. That has really struck a chord here in Madison. And two, folks are really terrified for immigrant communities and the LGBTQ community here in Madison specifically. It's no secret, Madison is a very LGBTQ friendly city. Our mayor is a gay woman. Dane County is a sanctuary county for trans people. And so people are worried. People are nervous about what's going to happen. And people are also really upset, too, about Trump effectively dissolving the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, which provides billions of dollars in global humanitarian funding and work every year. And, Trump has called the agency's spending superfluous and just unnecessary and has talked about, government bloat and whatnot. But to me, if you want to be a global superpower like the U.S. is, you have to step up and take care of people all across the globe, right? So there's a lot to be mad about here. There's a lot to take in here. And people showed up and they showed out. So I'm curious to see how things will progress. I'm curious to see if actions will be taken. Of course, things are already happening at the federal and judicial level. So we'll kind of just have to see how this unfolds. But in the meantime, Madison and across the country, people will be protesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been talking about it on the Friday News Roundups each week because it's like, how could you not? Like, we're a local show about Madison, and the executive branch of the U.S. federal government is coming in hot and doing so much so fast. A lot of us are just spinning, and a lot of people are outraged because, things are being done that have never been done before, including like allowing Elon Musk to go into private spaces in the Treasury Department that like former Treasury secretaries have never been. Like, people don't even know these spaces, and they're being opened up. Access to basically like private information to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. I think I saw as of Thursday morning, over 40,000 federal employees have already applied for the offer to be bought out. That some of the elected people in Congress who handle the budget have responsibly pointed out that buyout money has not even been allocated. So we've been talking about all of these issues. And like you said, like a lot of the ire is around DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love this. I saw in reporting from WPR, this is a photo from Anna Marie Yanni of a protester downtown on Wednesday, and his sign says, "The only minority destroying this country are the billionaires." It's just like, and yeah, a huge crowd. Like, a lot of people showed up that, it wasn't certain that so many people would come, but people also obviously want community and want to feel connected to that people care about what's happening and that, they have a platform to speak.
Yeah, it's happening. And like you said, this is a national story, of course, but there are so many local tie-ins. Even the other day, WPR and AP reported that it was a Madison school policy. It was actually cited in a Trump order that banned the teaching of critical race theory and gender identity. So like, they're paying attention to us. They're paying attention to our Madison city. And so again, like this is something that I don't think that our city is going to take lying down. They're not going to be quiet about it for sure. I expect there will be many more protests to come in the future, just as there always have been, right?
Yeah. And the hundreds, it does kind of strike a chord back to, earlier moments of protests when lots of people get involved. Because sometimes the protests are, like 40, 60 people, maybe even 15. But yeah, it was definitely a good turnout.
Yeah, I saw the Journal-Sentinel put it at about 400 people, which is not anything to scoff at, not Madison's biggest protest by any means, but also perhaps the fact that hundreds of people showed out for this one that kind of proved its legitimacy. And perhaps if there are more from these 51 organizers, that more people will show up.
Mm-hmm. Talking about our city streets, hitting the streets for protest, man, it's time.
It's time. It's time to name these plows. I feel like we need like game show music in the background. So once again, our city has a big task for you, the people of Madison, Wisconsin. In partnership with Wisconsin Saltwise, the city is hosting its own special election of sorts to name 6 of its snow removal vehicles. So that's like plows and those pushers and, salters and whatnot that you see out on the street. And fun fact, it was initially supposed to be 5, but people submitted so many names that the city decided to like add one more truck to the mix. It's pretty wild. People submitted over 1,300 names. So people got creative with it.
That's a lot.
It's nuts, right? And so now you can go and vote on your favorite names. And just like it has been in the past, it's ranked choice voting, and you choose your top 5, and you have until February 24th at 8 p.m. to submit your vote for these plows. Have you voted on your plow yet, Bianca?
I haven't voted, but I do have some favorite names.
Oh, yeah? Tell me your favorite. I have some favorites,
No, you go
too.
first. You go first.
I've been on a big Lord of the Rings kick recently, so I love Saltwise Gamgee. A shout out to our boy Samwise. Also, the emo inside me. I died when I read this name. Taking Back Snow Day, a nod to one of my favorite bands, Taking Back Sunday. And then I'm a fan of the goofy names too. Snow. I don't even know how to say this. Snowfluffapuckus. Snow like snuff. It's like Snuffleupagus, right? But it's like snow.
Snowfluffagus.
Yes, exactly that. I love
You're
that
like
one.
A little train that could. You got it, girl. Snowfluffa.
There's a couple of Madison nods that are in there too that I like. Snowmingo, of course, a nod to the flamingo, which you can't have anything in Madison that isn't named Forward or Flamingo. And then there's also Frank Plowed Wright, which I think is great. And Wright is also spelled R-I-G-H-T. So it's like there's multiple things happening in that name. And then a classic provolone cheese, because we're the dairy state, of course.
Yes.
And then there's fun ones like Taylor Drift, Madtown's version, a nod to our girl Taylor, and Pathaway. I kind of love that one just because imagine having a snowplow named after Anne Hathaway. Like we would probably, I mean, someone fact check me, but we'd probably be the only city ever to do that. And then Chili Eilish, like Billie Eilish. So
there
that's
are a
good
lot
one.
of like artists' names in there, which I liked for sure. Some of them that I highlighted that I liked as like Snow Diggity, Snow Dog.
I like that
It was
one,
just
too.
Snow Diggity. Scrapes of Wrath when our nation is under, big changes and duress. And Rocky Snow Boa was my favorite.
Yeah, I love
like,
it.
it would have been great also if it's Rocky Snow Blowa, you know?
Oh, that would have been really good. You should submit that one next time. Next time.
Yeah, next round. But
Next
whoever
round.
did that, great inspiration here.
Great work, team.
Great work, team. Y'all go out and vote. Go out and vote.
This is the election of a lifetime.
Election of a lifetime. All right, that's it. That's a wrap for the Friday News Roundup. Thanks so much for joining me for rounding up the news this week. As always, Haley Sperling.
Always a pleasure.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos, Adam Sage, and Elizabeth Kama. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who likes to fly Southwest Airlines? See you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, take good care.